Being aware of our body is a critical skill for wellness. I really have to know how my body's doing in order to make the right decisions, whether I need to eat differently or rest or be active. I need to know, be in touch with what's going on in my body. Hi, I'm Dr. Peter Minke. This is Minke Wellness. I'm going to teach you more about what I consider to be one of my most powerful skills and tool sets that I use to get in touch with my body and stay in tune, and that's through breath. I call this therapeutic breath, and I'm going to share with you a little bit more about this system, explain some of the details of it, and we're going to engage in this over the next 3 days to enhance our awareness of the respiratory system, to get more in touch with the respiratory system and use what I call this therapeutic breath system to do that. So if you'll bear with me for a few minutes, I'm going to introduce you to some more concepts about the therapeutic breath, and then we'll go into breathing, a little bit more information about the respiratory system, how does it work, and start to connect to that with breath. And then the next 2 days, we're going to get real specific. It'll be a lot of fun. I think you'll find that anatomy and physiology isn't so boring. It's not such a school-based, let's have a lesson in anatomy and physiology and then you memorize it and forget it. No, we actually live this anatomy and physiology. So I'm encouraging you to engage with me in this process and learn a little bit more about your body and find that it's amazing and wonderful, and there's so many ways that we can get into that, and the breath is a fabulous way to do this. So let's start with the breath. We've been doing some breathing in and out here. We've talked about that for the last week, inhaling, exhaling. We exhale first, inhale, and really feeling this breath volume, trying to work on increasing our awareness of breathing and then just breath volume itself. We can get more detail, more information, and more specific about breathing, because right now we've just been talking about breathing in and out, but we can look at the mechanics and say, well, actually, we have a left and a right. So we can breathe and focus into our left and breathe and focus into our right. So what does that mean by focus? I start talking about something I call listening breath. When I use a breath to focus my attention and listen to a certain area of the body, sometimes it can be really specific. And then the second part would be an action breath. We'll talk about that in a minute. So first, let's just talk about doing listening breath to get more in tune with the respiratory system and the mechanics of breathing. So I would breathe a listening breath, bring my awareness into the left lung. So I'm just going to focus on the left lung. Now, sometimes when I'm breathing into a part of the body and I want to bring my attention there, I can touch it to give myself more sensation. So I'm gonna touch my left rib cage and say, okay, I'm just bringing my brain to this. This is where I'm going to pay attention to. So I'm going to breathe into the left side. Now, I realize that air is going to go into both sides, but just let's work on it and allow our attention just to focus on the left. So here air is going in both, but I'm going to focus all my attention on the left lung. So that would be a listening breath. I'm focusing my attention to that. Now I'm going to switch over to the right lung. You say, okay, sure, I've got a left and a right lung. Great. Let's look at the anatomy. Don't be scared by diagrams or anything, but let's look at the anatomy here. We've got a right lung. It's got 3 lobes, and a left lung that has 2 lobes. It's got 1 less lobe, mainly because the heart occupies some of that left lung. And so here's our diaphragm that is this dome shaped, and as that contracts, we might be able to feel that. That contracts and it pulls and flattens, and that pulls air in, and that actually presses down against the organs. And then you got the ribs that you can't see here. Actually, that's in this diagram. The ribs pull up with the inhale, and then they can contract down for the exhale. So those are our 2 mechanisms we've been working with, but let's look at this right and left lung. Now, what I'm showing you here is that the anatomy is such that it's the real anatomy there is that I have 3 lobes on the right and 2 lobes on the left. Let's play with listening with those. I'm going to breathe down into the right lower lobe. So obviously air is going in all of it, but I'm just bringing my attention just down to here. Okay, now in the middle lobe. And now the upper lobe. Can you tell any difference in tension or quality of breath between any one of those spots? Now the left side, upper lobe and lower lobe. Now this all might seem a little foreign to you, you're not used to it, and that's okay. But what I'm saying is these are the actual anatomical structures, so we can start to use our imagination to help us engage in, oh, how do I feel that? Maybe I can pretend to feel it. Well, pretend is part of the package. We don't know exactly how it looks in there, so we're just going to use our imagination and some pictures and try to get in touch with that. So there's this left and right. We can start to get specific and feel those different lobes. There's also a front, just basically a front and a back. I'm going to breathe just to my front. Expand the front ribs. Right? And now I'm going to expand the back ribs. You think, well, yes, yeah, there's a back ribs. So let's go ahead and expand to the back. Right? So I now can get a feel for, is one side, front or back, more tight? I definitely feel the tension in the back. And that makes sense because I've got a shoulder girdle and all the rest of this that's got musculature that's covering up the back. It's a little bit different than the front. You don't have the bone in front here that you would in the back. So yeah, it makes sense. I'm more tight in the back than I am in the front. This is, again, just giving me information. Well, what if there's inappropriate tension? Or what if there's other restrictions or other things going on in my lungs that I would want to pay attention to? Doing these listening breaths can give me that information. Okay, so here's where we could engage with a listening breath that is not necessarily mechanical. So bear with me here. With the listening breath, I'm gonna fill up the left lung with light, and then I'm going to listen to see if there's any areas in there that don't receive the light, that are a little bit darker or shadowy or scary or whatever. So I'm going to breathe into the light. I'm going to bring light, invite light into the whole left lung, and then just look. And with my imagination, is there anything that won't receive the light? And it might take 2 or 3 breaths to do this. That's okay. The mind doesn't, we've got that time to, it only takes a few seconds to bring that attention. And I actually feel a whole area down the side that doesn't receive that light. It's more dark. So again, I'm just imagining. Don't worry about being correct at this point. We're just playing, we're just imagining. So I feel this sort of dark edge. It's probably where tension is, I don't know, but there's this dark edge on the outside. So what am I going to do? I'm going to do an action breath. So here's where the action breath comes in, and I'm going to inhale a direct light specifically to that area in my side, and from the inside, feel the lungs fill up and invite the light to that specific. So I'm just kind of I'm directing with a little more action, a little more intention. So I'm going to bring that light into that side and down that strip where I felt the darkness. And I might actually engage a little bit with an exhale and try to exhale out any of that darkness or whatever that is. And then inhale back in. So you can see I can start to play with this concept of an inhale and exhale. I'm going to add one little piece to this breath, the breathing in and out, and that's what I call breath cycle. And we have an inhale and exhale, but we actually have a pause in between each of those. So I inhale, pause, exhale, pause. That pause is where I allow my brain to focus a little bit, get a little bit of attention, where my action breath, my listening breath, and my action breath are happening a lot of times in that pause. The inhale, I travel to the area. The pause is where I'm allowing that image to form, allowing the brain to invite information, the exchange of information, and then exhale, and then the pause again. If I'm using the exhale, then I would engage the action on the pause. I don't actually use the inhale and exhale all continuously at the same time. It's too much for my brain to handle. So I do an inhale, and then I let it go for the exhale. Or I focus on the exhale, and then I let go on the inhale, or I don't worry too much about it. So it's up to you. You might be sharper than I am, but I just find that I can't stay conscious with the breath cycle, having always inhale, exhale, and it's too much for my brain to hold. So I give my brain a little rest, and I inhale, pause, inhale, and don't worry about the exhale. So that would be, that was my listening breath for the left, and then I did an action breath into the side. So let's do that for the right. I'm going to bring the light. I'm going to invite light into the right side of my body, into my right lung, and then just listen for any darkness. or restriction, or whatever you want to think about it. So for me on the right, it's different. I've got this dark sort of band that runs up underneath the right shoulder. Again, probably tension, but it just doesn't receive the light. It doesn't sparkle with the light the way that the other rest of the lung does. So I'm going to breathe that action breath, and I'm going to focus that light, or maybe I could image heat if I felt like it was tension, but I'm going to breathe into that area. Take a few action breaths and allow that pause to allow that light to soak in. Okay, so there's our inhale, exhale, action, listening breath, action breath with a little pause when I need it, and we start to see how we can engage the mind into the awareness of our body. So this obviously doesn't just apply to, if I can engage my imagination, it doesn't just apply to the lungs. I could say I'm going to breathe into my liver, or breathe into my stomach, or breathe down into my hip joint. It doesn't matter. I can use this mechanism for traveling with the inhale, travel into the body, go to the location, breathe down into the right leg, left leg. And has amazing potential. Maybe I'll tell you some stories of how I've, not today, but how I've worked with people and helped them breathe into certain body parts and gotten amazing results with some of these things. So the power of your breath combined with consciousness is that air and love category combined with consciousness into a very powerful healing tool. So we're going to explore this a little bit more over the next 2 days to get some details into the respiratory system. We'll breathe into the lining of the lungs, breathe into the alveoli. We'll learn a little bit of anatomy physiology, no quiz, don't worry. We'll breathe into the trachea and the bronchi and start to get in touch with the physiological process of breathing, breathe into the oxygen exchange with the carbon dioxide, and we'll start to really get active, bring our consciousness to activate our respiratory system. We might even throw a few essential oils in there to feel that and enhance that experience with the breathing. But the main point here is to start to engage. Now I want to bring up one more point, and that is we can engage imagery. So right now I've been using light and just kind of imposing that, but there's another way I could breathe into something and imagine it like a rose bush, or imagine it like a pool of water, and then that imagery comes and flows from that. So I breathe into my lung. I said, okay, if my lung is a rose bush, does it bloom? Is it got blight? And I can start to play with that imagery. That way, when my action breath comes in, I can breathe in that vitality, breathe in minerals, breathe in. And so we can start to do this as I engage with the supplements that I take. I breathe those supplements and I send them into whatever area I want. In this case, we're working on the respiratory system. So when I take my supplements, I breathe after I've swallowed, not to inhale the supplements, but after I've swallowed, I breathe in and I use that intention and breath to invite the supplements to move into the lungs, to start to heal and clear the mucus and the lining and all the rest of that. And that's just a way to engage my mind in the healing process. Does it actually do anything? My experience is it does. But like I said, what's the benefit of being unconscious? Yeah, sure, I could pop my pills and move on about my day, or I could spend a few seconds, literally just seconds, taking a breath or two and invite that to come in. So anyway, that's what we're going to do for the next couple days, is get more specific with the respiratory system. Join me. I think you're going to like it. I have thoroughly enjoyed doing this and being in touch with my body on this. So happy wellness. We'll see you tomorrow.